Let me paint you a picture. 25 years old. Sitting in my apartment. Well, calling it an apartment is generous. It was more like a box with windows. I'm staring at my bank account on my phone, and the number looking back at me is 4732. Not 47,000, not 4700, $47.32. And rent was due in 3 days. I remember thinking, this is it. This is rock bottom. But here's what I didn't know then. What I couldn't possibly have understood in that moment of absolute desperation. That feeling, that crushing weight of failure at 25, was actually the greatest gift I would ever receive. Now, I'm not here to tell you some fairy tale about how I became a millionaire overnight. I'm not selling you a course or a cryptocurrency scheme. What I'm here to share is something far more valuable. The truth about what being broke actually teaches you, and why the lessons learned in scarcity are worth more than any paycheck. Society has sold us a timeline, hasn't it? By 25, you should have it figured out. Career trajectory, check. Savings account, check. Maybe a mortgage, a serious relationship, a sense that you're adulting successfully. We scroll through social media, and everyone seems to have their life together. Everyone except us. But let me tell you something that took me years to understand. Most people at 25 are just as lost as you are. They're just better at the performance. They've mastered the Instagram post, the LinkedIn update, the carefully curated image of success. Behind the scenes, many of them are struggling too. I know because I was one of them, until I couldn't be anymore. Until the act became impossible to maintain because the reality was too loud to ignore. When you have money, you have options. Endless options. You can try this career, experiment with that business idea, take another course, travel to find yourself. Options feel like freedom, but often they're just sophisticated forms of procrastination. Being broke strips all that away. Suddenly, you have one option: survive. And in that survival mode, something miraculous happens. You get clear, crystal clear. I remember sitting at my kitchen table with a notebook because I couldn't afford the distraction of my laptop's infinite browser tabs. I wrote down one question. What can I do today that will put food on my table? Not next month. Not when I finish some certification. Today. That clarity was terrifying and liberating in equal measure. I couldn't afford dreams without action plans. I couldn't afford theories without execution. Being broke made me pragmatic in a way that privilege never could. Here's what I learned. Clarity isn't comfortable, but it's powerful. When you remove all the noise, all the somedays and maybes, you're left with what actually matters. And that's where real progress begins. You know what happens when you can't afford to buy solutions? You learn to create them. When my laptop broke and I couldn't afford repairs, I learned to use the library's computers and optimize every minute of free access. When I couldn't afford professional networking events with their hefty ticket prices, I started conversations at coffee shops and free community gatherings. When I couldn't afford a gym membership, I discovered that my body weight in a public park were all I needed. Being broke taught me that money is just one tool, and it's not even the most important one. The most important tool is your mind, your willingness to solve problems creatively, your ability to see opportunities where others see obstacles. I once landed a freelance contract because I offered to solve a company's problem for free for 2 weeks, just to prove I could do it. Did I have the luxury of working for free? Absolutely not. But I had something more valuable. I had hunger, creativity, and nothing to lose. That 2-week trial turned into a 6-month contract that changed my financial trajectory. Your current limitations are not your destiny. They're your training ground. I had to learn to ask for help. And let me tell you, for someone who'd always prided themselves on independence, that was devastating. I had to call my parents and admit I was struggling. I had to ask friends if they knew of any job opportunities. I had to accept a meal when someone offered, even though everything in me wanted to refuse. Pride tells us that needing help is weakness, but that's a lie that keeps us trapped. The truth is that every successful person you admire got there with help. Every single one. They had mentors, supporters, people who believed in them when they didn't believe in themselves. Being broke forced me to choose my pride or my survival. I chose survival. And in doing so, I discovered something remarkable. People actually want to help. When you're genuine, when you're not entitled or demanding but simply honest about your struggle, most people respond with kindness. That network of people who helped me when I had nothing, many of them are still in my life today. Not because of what I can give them now, but because shared struggle creates authentic bonds. Those relationships are worth more than any amount in my bank account. This is the hardest lesson, and the most important one. Our society has conflated financial success with human value. We measure worth in dollars, promotions, square footage, follower counts. And when you're broke, it's easy to internalize that message. Easy to believe that because you're financially struggling, you're somehow less than, less smart, less capable, less deserving. But being broke at 25 taught me to separate those two things. My bank account was empty, but I wasn't empty. I still had skills, intelligence, humor, compassion, ideas, and potential. The market hadn't valued those things yet, but that didn't make them worthless. I learned to introduce myself not by what I did for money, but by what I was passionate about. I learned to measure my days not by dollars earned, but by problems solved, connections made, skills developed. I learned that growth sometimes looks like poverty, at least temporarily. Your financial situation is a circumstance, not an identity. It's a chapter, not the whole story. Don't let a temporary situation define your permanent worth. Here's the beautiful paradox. Rock bottom is terrifying, but it's also stable. When you've hit the lowest point, there's only one direction to go. And more importantly, there's nothing left to protect. When I had 4732 to my name, I stopped playing it safe. What was I protecting? There was no prestigious job to lose, no perfect image to maintain, no safety net to fall back on. I was already in the net. That freedom, that peculiar liberation of having nothing to lose, allowed me to take risks I never would have taken otherwise. I pitched ideas that seemed audacious. I applied for positions I wasn't qualified for. I started projects without knowing if they'd work. Because why not? What was the worst that could happen? I'd stay broke? I was already there. Some of those risks failed, but some of them didn't. And the ones that didn't changed everything. Rock bottom gives you permission to rebuild from the ground up, to design your life intentionally rather than accepting what's been handed to you. It's not a punishment. It's a reset button. Let me tell you what nobody talks about. Success isn't linear. It's not a steady climb from point A to point B. It's messy, chaotic, full of setbacks and sideways moves and moments when you're absolutely certain you're going backward. Being broke at 25 didn't guarantee future success, but it guaranteed future wisdom. It taught me to appreciate what I have, to never take stability for granted, to maintain that hunger and resourcefulness even when money is no longer scarce. The skills I developed when I had nothing, creativity, resilience, humility, grit. Those are the skills that create lasting success. Because money comes and goes, opportunities rise and fall. But who you become in the struggle, that's permanent. So if you're sitting where I was, broke, scared, wondering if you'll ever figure it out, I want you to hear this. You're not behind. You're not failing. You're in the crucible, and the crucible is where strength is forged. The question isn't whether you'll get through this. You will. The question is, what will you learn while you're here? Who will you become in the process? Don't waste this experience wishing it away. Mine it for every lesson, every ounce of growth it offers. Let it teach you what nothing else can. Let it strip away everything that doesn't matter, so you can see clearly what does. Take that clarity and use it. Take that resourcefulness and sharpen it. Take that humility and let it connect you to others. Take that understanding of your inherent worth and never forget it, no matter how much money you eventually make. Starting today, I want you to do 3 things. First, write down one problem you're facing right now and brainstorm 3 unconventional solutions. Don't limit yourself to what you can afford. Focus on what you can say, what you can create, negotiate, or do differently. Resourcefulness starts with believing solutions exist beyond the obvious ones. Second, reach out to one person and ask for help, advice, or connection. Practice humbling yourself. Practice being honest about where you are. You'll be amazed at the doors that open when you're genuine about your journey. Third, document where you are right now. Write it down, record a video, do something that captures this moment. Because one day, maybe soon, maybe years from now, you're going to look back at this season and realize it was the making of you. And you'll want to remember who you were when you were brave enough to keep going, despite having every reason to quit. I was broke at 25. It was painful, humbling, and one of the scariest periods of my life. It was also the best thing that ever happened to me. Not because I romanticize struggle. I don't. Poverty isn't noble, and financial stress is real and valid. But because in that crucible, I discovered who I actually was beneath all the titles and external measures of success. I discovered strength I didn't know I had. I discovered that I was capable of more than I ever imagined. Your current circumstances are not your final destination. They're your training ground. They're preparing you for a future that requires exactly the skills you're developing right now. So embrace where you are. Learn everything it has to teach you, and know that on the other side of this struggle is a version of you that's stronger, wiser, and unstoppable. You've got this. And one day, you'll stand in front of a room full of people and tell them about this moment. The moment you were broke, scared, and uncertain, and how it changed everything. That day is coming. Until then, keep going, keep learning, keep growing. The best is yet to come.